Okay, let's move on to storage. Storage consists of 5 elements, the most famous of which being Amazon's S3 service. S3 has been around basically since the conception of the AWS platform, and S3 is file-based storage or object-based storage, so it allows you to store files in the cloud. Files can be any size from 1 byte up to 5 terabytes, and in terms of our free eligibility account, we get up to 5 gigs of storage on the S3 platform. And we're going to go into S3 in a lot of depth in a couple of sections from now. So at this stage, we'll just stay at a high-level overview. Amazon's Glacier service is an archiving service which allows you to archive all your old data in the Amazon cloud. It's not immediately accessible. It takes 3 to 5 hours to restore a file from Glacier. So you need to bear that in mind when designing your solutions. Glacier is basically there for long-term storage. For example, in the United Kingdom, if you are regulated by the Financial Services Authority, they require you to store your data for 7 years to meet FSA guidelines. And a lot of companies use Glacier to do exactly that. They will store data that they no longer need or are using, but they'll put it into Glacier to get that 7 years, to meet that 7 years deadline. Okay, EBS is Amazon's Elastic Block Storage, which allows you to have persistent storage in the cloud. It's block level, so it allows you to install different file systems, so you can have Windows partition or a Linux partition installed on your EBS volume, and most commonly you'll be using EBS volumes to mount to your EC2 instances. EBS is completely flexible. You can choose from magnetic storage to SSD storage, and then you can do SSD general purpose as well as SSD for high IOPS. AWS Storage Gateway is a service that connects an on-premise software appliance with cloud-based storage to provide seamless and secure integration between an organization's on-premise IT equipment and AWS's storage infrastructure. The service allows you to securely store data in the AWS cloud for scalable and cost-efficient storage. The AWS Storage Gateway supports industry-standard storage protocols that work with your existing applications. Effectively, AWS Storage Gateway is used for backups to cloud or to S3 or to Glacier. AWS Import-Export accelerates moving large amounts of data in and out of the AWS cloud using portable storage devices for transport. AWS Import-Export transfers your data directly onto and off of storage devices using Amazon's high-speed internal networking and bypasses the internet. For significant data sets, AWS Import-Export is often faster than internet transfers and more cost-effective than upgrading your connectivity. Say, for example, you've got 20 terabytes of storage and your organization's based in a North African country such as Morocco, where internet can be quite unreliable, and you need to move this large amount of data onto the AWS cloud. You would utilize AWS's import-export and send a physical device out to AWS, who would then use their own internal network to transfer your data into, say, an S3 bucket. They do charge a fee for this, and more information can be found on the AWS website as to how this is structured financially. Okay, we'll now move on to databases, and the most famous database service on the AWS platform currently is the RDS service, or Relational Database Services. Now, if you don't know what the difference is between a relational database and a non-relational database, or a SQL versus NoSQL, we will cover that further on in the course. But for now, all you need to know is RDS consists of 5 elements now. It consists of SQL Server by Microsoft, has Oracle, it has PostgreSQL, it has MySQL, and it also has Amazon's own database engine, which was announced at the last reInvent Summit, and this is known as Aurora, which is a completely MySQL compatible database, but it's designed to run specifically on the AWS platform. For NoSQL, we will be looking at Amazon's DynamoDB, and we'll compare how a database or how a record or a table looks in RDS compared to how it's presented in DynamoDB, and we'll cover that later in the course under the database section. Elasticache allows you to, it offers an in-memory caching service for the AWS platform. Now there should be one more database here, but there's arguments in the community as to whether or not it's considered a database service or an analytics service. So we'll touch on that in the next slide when we move to analytics. In the analytics section, we have Amazon Redshift. Amazon Redshift is a fast, fully managed, petabyte-scale data warehousing solution that makes it simple and cost-effective to efficiently analyze your data using your existing business intelligence tools. It's designed from the infrastructure layer upwards to maximize performance and minimize costs, and we'll explore this in a lot more detail in the databasing section of the course. Amazon Kinesis is a fully managed service for real-time processing of streaming data at massive scale. Amazon Kinesis can continuously change and store terabytes of data per hour from hundreds of thousands of sources, such as website clickstreams, financial transactions, social media feeds, IT logs, and location tracking events. With Amazon Kinesis Client Library, KCL, you can build Amazon Kinesis applications and use streaming data to power real-time dashboards, generate alerts, implement dynamic pricing and advertising, and more. You can also emit data from Amazon Kinesis to other AWS services such as S3, Redshift, Elastic MapReduce, and Lambda. Amazon Elastic MapReduce is a web service that makes it easy to quickly and cost-effectively process vast amounts of data. Amazon EMR uses Hadoop, which is an open-source framework to distribute your data and process across a resizable cluster of Amazon EC2 instances. It can also run other distributed frameworks such as Spark and Presto. Amazon Elastic MapReduce is used in a variety of applications, including log analysis, web indexing, data warehousing, machine learning, financial analysis, scientific simulation, and bioinformatics. Customers launch millions of Amazon Elastic MapReduce clusters each year. We'll now move on to application services, and we'll start with Amazon's Simple Queue service. Amazon's Simple Queue service is a fast, reliable, scalable, and fully managed messaging queuing service. SQS makes it simple and cost-effective to decouple the components of a cloud application. You can use SQS to transmit any volume of data at any level of throughput without losing messages or requiring other services to always be available. And we will go into this in a theoretical section of the course because this will come up in the exam. If you remember from the exam blueprints section, they do talk about decoupling specifically in there, and SQS is the service that you would use to decouple your applications. So we will come back to this in a lot more detail. We'll move on now to Amazon's Simple Workflow service. Amazon SWF helps developers to build, run, and scale background jobs that have parallel or sequential steps. You could think of Simple Workflow as a fully managed state tracker and task coordinator in the cloud. Tasks can be carried out by either application or human workers, and we'll go into this in more detail in further sections of this course. Amazon's Simple Notification Service, known as SNS, is a fast, flexible, fully managed push messaging service. Amazon's SNS makes it simple and cost-effective to push notifications to all mobile devices, including Apple, Google, Fire OS, and Windows devices, including Android devices as well. You can also use SNS to push notifications to internet-connected smart devices as well as other distributed systems. Besides pushing cloud notifications directly to mobile devices, Amazon's SNS can also deliver notifications by SMS, text message, or email to Amazon's Simple Queue service queues or any HTTP endpoint. To prevent messages from being lost, all messages are published to Amazon SNS are stored redundantly across multiple availability zones. Amazon Simple Email Service, or SES, is a cost-effective, outbound-only email sending service. With Amazon SES, you can send transactional emails, marketing messages, etc., and you only pay for what you use. Along with high deliverability, Amazon SES provides easy, real-time access to your sending statistics and built-in notifications for bounces, complaints, and deliveries to help you fine-tune your cloud-based email sending strategy. Amazon Elastic Transcoder is a media transcoding service in the cloud. It is designed to be highly scalable, easy to use, and a cost-effective way for developers and businesses to convert or transcode media files from their source formats into versions that will play on devices like smartphones, tablets, and PCs. Video services such as Amazon Prime and Netflix make heavy use of Amazon's Elastic Transcoding service. Amazon Cloud Search is a managed service in the AWS cloud that makes it simple and cost-effective to set up and manage and scale a custom search solution for your website or application. We'll now move on to deployment and management. AWS OpsWorks is an application management service that makes it easy to deploy and operate applications of all shapes and sizes. You can define the application's architecture and the specification around each component, including package installation, software configuration, and resources such as storage. Start from templates for common technologies like application servers and databases, or build your own to perform any task that can be scripted. AWS OpsWorks includes automation to scale your application based on time or load and dynamic configuration to orchestrate changes as your environment scales. AWS Identity Access Management, or IAM, enables you to securely control access to AWS services and resources for your users. Using IAM, you can create and manage AWS users and groups and use permissions to allow and deny their access to AWS resources. And we'll actually cover this off in the next section of the course. This is where we'll start to get hands-on practical experience with the AWS platform. AWS CloudWatch is a monitoring service for AWS cloud resources and the applications you run on AWS. You can use Amazon CloudWatch to collect and track metrics, collect and monitor log files, and set alarms. Amazon CloudWatch can monitor AWS resources such as Amazon EC2 instances, Amazon DynamoDB tables, and Amazon RDS DB instances, as well as custom metrics generated by your applications and services, and log any files your application generates. You can use Amazon CloudWatch to gain system-wide visibility into resource utilization, application performance, and operational health. AWS Elastic Beanstalk is an easy-to-use service for developing and scaling web applications and services developed with Java, .NET, PHP, Node.js, Python, Ruby, and Docker on familiar servers such as Apache, Nginx, Passenger, and IIS. You can simply upload your code and Elastic Beanstalk will automatically handle the deployment from capacity provisioning, load balancing, auto-scaling, application health, and monitoring. At the same time, you retain full control over the AWS resources powering your application and can access the underlying resources at any time. CloudTrail is essentially a logging and auditing service offered by AWS. AWS CloudTrail is a web service that records AWS API calls for your account and delivers log files to you. With CloudTrail, you can get a history of AWS API calls for your account, including API calls made via the AWS Management Console, software development kits, command line tools, and higher-level AWS services such as AWS CloudFormation. The AWS API call history produced by CloudTrail enables security analysis, resource change tracking, and compliance auditing. Data Pipeline is a web service that helps you reliably process and move data between different AWS compute and storage services, as well as on-premise data sources at a specified interval. With AWS Data Pipeline, you can regularly access your data, where it's stored, transform and process it at scale, and efficiently transfer the results to AWS services such as Amazon S3, Amazon RDS, Amazon DynamoDB, and Amazon Elastic MapReduce. AWS CloudFormation gives developers and system administrators an easy way to create and manage a collection of related AWS resources, provisioning and updating them in an orderly and predictable fashion. You can use AWS CloudFormation sample templates or create your own templates to describe the AWS resources and any associated dependencies or runtime parameters required to run your application. You don't need to figure out the order for provisioning AWS services or the subtleties of making those dependencies work. CloudFormation takes care of that for you. After the AWS resources are deployed, you can modify and update them in a controlled and predictable way, in effect applying version control to your AWS infrastructure, the same way you do with your software. And that concludes our high-level overview of the AWS platform. Now we'll move on to the next lecture once you've had a break, and I'll see you on the next slide.